Yo, what's up guys? It's me, Kui the Ghost, back again to talk about all the things I love. Persona 4 Golden is one of my favorite games of all time. I played it on my PS Vita back in the day and ended up being one of the most interesting gaming experiences I've ever had. Even now, well over a decade later, I find myself randomly singing, "Every day's great at your Junes." So needless to say, I've been looking forward to Nikke's latest collab for a while now, but I never expected the wave of controversy that followed. Well, here we go again. Let's get into it. Is Nikke X Persona the most controversial collab of all time? Goddess of Victory Nikke has finally crossed over with Persona, and on paper, this should be an absolutely perfect collaboration. You've got one of the biggest fan service oriented mobile games in the world teaming up with one of the biggest JRPG franchises of all time. So naturally, people were expecting the Persona girls to receive the full Nikke treatment. And that's where things may have gotten a little bit controversial. Because while the collaboration itself looks great, especially the promotional artwork, some Nikke players aren't exactly thrilled with how the Persona characters have been presented. So let's examine what's actually going on, and then we'll get into some of the controversy. First and foremost, the collaboration officially launched on August 13th, 2026, as part of Persona's 30th anniversary celebrations. Instead of focusing exclusively on Persona 5, as most expected, the collaboration represents three different generations of modern Persona: Persona 3, 4, and 5. And the three featured characters are Aigis from Persona 3, Yukiko from Persona 4, and Makoto from Persona 5. Makoto and Yukiko are SSR characters, while Aigis is an SR attainable for free through the event. That in itself is already a source of controversy, since most consider Aigis to be canonically much stronger than the other two. But anyway, if you're a Persona fan, there's quite a lot to be excited about, at least on the surface. From a marketing perspective, this collaboration is almost too obvious. There are some genuinely great character choices here. Aigis in particular feels like she was practically designed for Nikke. She's already an artificial lifeform who fights with guns and heavy weaponry. Makoto also fits naturally into the Nikke combat aesthetic for obvious reasons. She's simply a badass and boasts much more aggressive combat style than some of her Persona peers. And then there's Yukiko, an interesting choice, but at least she brings something completely different to the table. She's one of Persona 4's fan favorites, and seeing her translated into Nikke's visual style is certainly interesting. Personally, I was hoping to see Chie, but I'm not surprised that she's been excluded. So what's the deal with all this controversy? Well, Nikke has a reputation. This game is famous for its extremely lewd character designs. Characters tend to have revealing costumes with enormous assets emphasized by legendary jiggle physics. Fanservice is a major part of the game's identity. That's not some secret conspiracy, it's one of the things Nikke deliberately sells. So, with the Persona characters revealed, a lot of players immediately noticed they didn't quite fit the bill, especially Makoto. And that's where the main point of controversy started. Let's take a look. The basic criticism is very simple. If you're bringing Persona characters into Nikke, why aren't you allowing them to look like Nikke characters? Most fans were expecting things like revealing outfits, exaggerated shooting poses, or the kind of ludification that Nikke routinely uses not only for its own characters, but previous collabs too. Instead, the Persona characters remain noticeably conservative. Not only do they lack the curves we're used to, but there's a blatant lack of physics. I'll be blunt. Their asses are basically static PNGs at this point. And it's particularly glaring when you put them next to Nikke's original characters, especially the Saint Thief skin for Phantom that launched with the event. Holy bohungalahoogs, the contrast is insane. Some players have therefore argued that Persona rights holders must have placed restrictions on how much Shift Up could change or sexualize these characters. And from a licensing perspective, that explanation is completely plausible. Let's explore a little deeper. Did Atlus ban the fan service? There's currently no public statement from Atlus or Sega saying anything like, "We told Shift Up not to add fan service." At least I haven't found one. The closest thing I could find was a viral post on X claiming that's what happened. I also noticed that Persona collabs with everything. I feel like there are hundreds of Persona collabs from Hatsune Miku Colorful Stage to Overwatch to Bang Dream, and the list goes on. We know that Persona is owned by Atlus and Sega, meaning Shift Up does not have unlimited creative control over these characters. That's just how licensed collaborations work. I noticed none of the other Persona collabs are particularly lewd either, so it seems that maybe due to the high volume of crossover content, Atlus may be issuing some blanket guidelines for everyone to follow. So if Atlus decided that Makoto, Yukiko, and Agus had to remain relatively faithful to their established designs, that's perfectly normal licensing behavior. What doesn't make sense is that this decision almost certainly dooms the collab to failure. No one is going to spend money to pull this Hank Hill-ass Makoto, but botching an easy dunk has never fazed these corporations before. That seems par for the course these days. And this concern isn't without precedent. We've already seen Nikke collaborations where the guest characters get extra special treatment in the beauty department. Ada and Jill are super caked up and jiggly. Asuka and Rei are on the petite side, but they still look good with their physics well intact. Even the beloved Yuri duo, Chisato and Takina, got something going on down there. Obviously, we don't need to bring up Nier Automata or Stellar Blade crossovers. And now we're left with the least attractive booties in all of Nikke history on display. Makoto, Yukiko, and probably Agus. I haven't really looked at Agus, but probably her too. Maybe with the exception of Pascal. Don't get me wrong, I honestly don't think any of this is a huge deal, but it does seem painfully obvious that Atlus had some involvement with the lackluster character models here. But that is what it is. If you don't like it, don't pay for it. Your wallet speaks louder than words with issues like this, and I really don't think it's unreasonable for Nikke players to be disappointed. If you play Nikke specifically because you enjoy its particular visual style, then seeing a crossover where characters are noticeably more conservative can feel very underwhelming. But I also think it's important to direct that criticism towards the right place in the right way. If restrictions really did come from Atlus, then Shift Up can't simply ignore them. They paid for the license, they negotiated the collaboration, and they have to follow the terms. So, a bunch of angry tweets doesn't do anything. So like I said, our best recourse is to speak with our wallets, and simply do not spend during the event. Don't forget that behind it all, Shift Up is also a massive corporation. There are a lot of gears spinning to get a collab like this rolling, and it's obvious there were some blind spots when it came to making the characters look this way. I'm sure someone decided we wouldn't notice or wouldn't care, and that the financial risk was minimal. If this sort of thing really bothers you, really just do not buy anything during the event period. If enough people agree, Shift Up will be forced to notice. They do pride themselves on making it to the #1 best-selling spot during these events. Rob them of that, and they'll think twice next time. Hopefully. Anyway, flat asses aside, it seems people dislike a lot more about this event. I've seen criticisms of the story writing, character choices, and even the minigame. To be honest, I haven't gotten far enough to be sure whether I like the story or not, so I'll reserve judgment until I finish it. But I totally get it if others don't want to sit through like 40 chapters of dialogue they dislike. As far as the minigame goes, I enjoyed what I played so far. It seems fine, even though it's no island breaker. I was painfully addicted to that one. I also suspect that some, or maybe even most of the criticism is a result of people's disappointment with the character models bleeding into everything else. Alright, well, I suppose I'll leave it there for now. I just thought the flat ass thing was too funny and had to make a quick video about it. In the end, Goddess of Victory Nikke is probably my favorite mobile game, and that's not about to change. I'm too busy being angry with the lack of neon skins to care too much about Makoto's ass, which I wasn't going to pull for anyway. As always, please leave a like, tell me what you think about this controversy, and please be sure to subscribe for more hot anime girl gaming content. See y'all in the next one. Ooh.